They called him a mistake. Born without a scent and without rank, Taren had spent his life in shadows, unnoticed and dismissed. He learned to move quietly, to speak softly, and to survive in a world that refused to see him. Yet beneath the silence, something stirred, a hidden power, quiet but alive, waiting for a moment it could awaken. One night, as the moon cast silver over the empty streets, Kaelen appeared. The Royal Alpha's amber eyes met Taren's with sharp curiosity, a presence that made the Omega's pulse race and something deep inside him stir. They called him a mistake. Taren had lived his entire life under that word, though no one had ever said it directly to his face. It was in the cold stares of other Omegas, in the whispers that followed him through the corridors of his school, in the way even the wind seemed to pass him by without acknowledgement. Born without a scent, without rank, he existed as a ghost among those who defined themselves by hierarchy, bloodline, and the invisible code of mating. His early memories were quiet, painfully quiet. He remembered staring at other Omegas as they played or laughed together, feeling a hollow emptiness in his chest that no comfort could fill. Even at home, his parents had treated him like a fragile object, a disappointment to be managed rather than a child to be loved. He learned to speak softly, to move quietly, and to make himself as small as possible. Yet, even in solitude, Taren's mind burned with questions. Why was he different? Why had the world rejected him before he had even opened his eyes? He had no scent to announce his presence, no mark to give him a place, no legacy to cling to, and so he drifted, through streets, through classrooms, through the narrow life he had been given, like someone observing rather than living. Night had always been his sanctuary. The darkness allowed him to breathe without judgment, to walk unseen along the rooftops of Taren, to watch the city flicker below without fear of attention. Here, he could imagine a world where he was not a mistake, where he could exist without being ignored or reviled. But reality always returned. Each morning, each word, each glance reminded him of the life he had been forced to accept. Invisible, disposable, irrelevant. And yet, Taren survived. Against every expectation, he endured. Even in his loneliness, he felt a faint stirring of something powerful, something he could not name. Sometimes, when the moon was high and the wind was still, he would feel it pulse in his chest, a hum of energy that belonged only to him. He had no idea what it was, only that it made him different, and different had always been dangerous. On one such night, Taren perched atop the tallest tower of the eastern wall, looking out over the quiet streets below. The city smelled of stone, smoke, and faint rain, but he smelled nothing of himself, nothing at all. That absence, that nothingness, had always been his curse, and yet, in that emptiness, he felt something he had never allowed himself to hope for. Possibility. It was then, when he was lost in the fragile comfort of shadows, that the world began to shift. He sensed a presence before he saw it, a heat unlike anything he had ever known, pressing against the edges of his awareness. It was deliberate, commanding, and undeniably alpha. Kaelen entered the scene quietly at first, as though testing the boundaries of the city and its invisible inhabitant. His scent was everywhere, a rich, intoxicating dominance that made Taren's heart stutter. It was overwhelming, but not in the way others had overwhelmed him. This was different. This was recognition. Taren turned, amber eyes wide, instinct and fear coiling in his stomach. He had never been noticed like this, had never had anyone seek him out. His mind screamed at him to run, to vanish into the shadows as he always had, but something in the Alpha's gaze stopped him. Something in the strength and curiosity of Kaelen's stare rooted him in place. "Who are you?" Kaelen's voice was low, measured, but it carried weight. It pressed into Taren's chest and made the Omega acutely aware of his own body, of every pulse, every breath. I am no one, Taren said, the words tasting bitter even as they left his lips. He had said them all his life, and yet they had never sounded so hollow. Kaelen's gaze did not waver. Instead, it pierced him, searching, studying, and in that silent examination, Taren felt something entirely new, an acknowledgement of his existence, of his presence, of something more. For the first time in his life, being a mistake did not feel like all there was. The streets of Taren were quiet that night, but the air between them was taut with something neither had expected. Taren's hands trembled slightly at his sides, though he kept his posture straight, refusing to retreat. Kaelen's eyes followed him like a predator studying a rare prey, careful, measured, yet undeniably hungry. You walk alone, Kaelen said, his tone deceptively casual, though the underlying power in his voice made it impossible for Taren to treat the words lightly. In a city that knows your name only to dismiss it. Why? Taren swallowed hard, his throat dry. He had spent years crafting answers for strangers, rehearsing explanations he would never speak aloud. But this Alpha was not a stranger. He was something else entirely, something that made fear and fascination twist in Taren's chest. Because no one wants me, Taren admitted quietly, and the words echoed with a sincerity that made Kaelen tilt his head. There was no flinching, no false humility, just bare truth. Kaelen's gaze sharpened, a spark of something dangerous igniting in his amber eyes. No one? He repeated, as though testing the weight of that loneliness. And yet, you exist, you breathe, you persist. Taren didn't answer immediately. He wasn't used to someone noticing the persistence beneath his surface. Most people didn't care enough to see it, but Kaelen did, and the realization sent a strange warmth crawling up Taren's spine. I persist, he said finally, voice steadier now. Because what else can I do? The Alpha stepped closer, closing the gap just enough to make Taren acutely aware of his heat, the powerful, overwhelming presence of someone born to dominate. It pressed against Taren in waves, stirring instincts he didn't even know he had. And yet, despite the intensity, he did not retreat, not fully. He only let a flicker of curiosity slip through the armor he had built. You carry something within you, Kaelen murmured, his eyes locked on Taren's. Something unusual. I can feel it. Taren blinked, startled. No one had ever said that before. No one had ever hinted that beneath his absence, beneath the silence he carried, there could be power. I don't know what you mean, he whispered, though a small, secret part of him hoped Kaelen did. Kaelen's lips curved faintly, almost imperceptibly, but there was an edge of amusement there, like he had found a puzzle that might break him if handled incorrectly. Perhaps you do not know, he said, but I do, and I intend to see what it can do. Taren's heart hammered. That single statement carried both promise and threat, and he could not tell which he feared more. The Alpha's heat pressed harder, curling around him like a living thing, and Taren felt the stirrings of something that had been dormant for years, something dangerous, something that could not be ignored. You're not like any other Omega I've met, Kaelen continued, voice low and deliberate. You should not exist. And yet, here you are. Taren's amber eyes met Kaelen's, steady despite the tremor of fear running through him. Then perhaps I am meant to exist for someone like you, he said softly, the words more instinct than thought. Yet they hung in the air between them like a spark in dry grass. Kaelen's jaw tightened, and for the first time, he hesitated. The Omega before him was no ordinary mistake. This one, without scent, without rank, carried a presence that defied everything the Alpha knew about power, about hierarchy, about control. And yet, that presence drew him in, made him curious, made him dangerous in ways he had not expected. You are a puzzle, Taren, Kaelen admitted, his voice a low rumble that brushed against the night air. And I must understand you. Taren's chest tightened, the combination of fear, longing, and raw need twisting inside him. For years, he had survived in silence, unseen and unvalued. But here, in Kaelen's presence, he felt seen in a way that hurt and thrilled all at once. The Alpha extended a hand slowly, deliberately, a test, a challenge, a promise all at once. "Come with me," he said, voice quiet but commanding. "There is more to you than this life of shadows. I intend to find out what." Taren hesitated only a moment, the weight of a lifetime of invisibility pressing against him. And then, with a steadying breath, he stepped forward, allowing the unknown to touch him for the first time in his life. The night swallowed them both, carrying whispers of power, desire, and a future neither had dared to imagine. The night air grew heavier as Kaelen led Taren through narrow alleyways and empty streets, the silence around them almost sacred. Taren's senses were on high alert, his every step cautious. Yet he couldn't stop the small thrill that hummed in his chest. To be noticed by a royal alpha, by someone like Kaelen, was both exhilarating and terrifying. "You are cautious," Kaelen observed, his voice a low drawl, almost teasing, though there was no humor in it. "Careful in every movement, always watching, always calculating." Taren flinched slightly. "I have to be," he whispered. "Otherwise, people take advantage of you. Or you disappear." Kaelen studied him for a long moment, amber eyes glinting with curiosity and something darker, something primal. "And yet, despite all that, you persist, you survive. That is impressive." His gaze softened briefly, though the intensity never left it. Most Omegas would have hidden long ago, accepted their insignificance. "I've never been like most Omegas," Taren replied, a quiet defiance threading his words. "I survive because I have to, not because anyone cares." A flicker of amusement, or perhaps something closer to desire, crossed Kaelen's face. "And yet I care." The statement was almost casual, but it hit Taren like a blow, twisting something deep in his chest. The Omega's heartbeat quickened, though he forced himself to remain composed. They reached a quiet square, moonlight spilling over the cobblestones, illuminating Taren's pale skin and the faint fire in his amber eyes. Kaelen stopped, standing just close enough that Taren could feel the heat radiating from him. The Alpha's presence was suffocating yet intoxicating, a force that demanded recognition. "Tell me something," Kaelen said, leaning slightly closer, his tone deliberate. "Have you ever felt power within yourself? Something beyond the ordinary?" Taren hesitated, instinct and caution warring with curiosity. Most would have laughed, called him delusional, but Kaelen's gaze made him feel like admitting it would not be met with ridicule. "Sometimes," Taren admitted softly, "I feel something, pulsing, like it's alive. I don't understand it, and I don't know if it's good or bad." Kaelen's eyes narrowed slightly, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Power is rarely just good or bad," he murmured. "It is dangerous because it demands recognition. And you have it, even if you do not yet know it." Taren's chest tightened. His secret, the part of him that had always been frighteningly quiet, was being named, acknowledged. It made him feel exposed, vulnerable, yet undeniably seen. Kaelen extended a hand, brushing a lock of hair from Taren's face, not roughly, but with deliberate intention. The touch sent a jolt through Taren's body, more electric than any he had ever felt. "You are extraordinary," Kaelen said, voice low and dangerous, "and I will not let this go. You intrigue me, and I will see just how far your strength goes." Taren's lips parted slightly, caught between fear, confusion, and an undeniable pull toward the Alpha. He wanted to retreat, to disappear into the shadows where he always belonged, but a deeper, more forbidden curiosity rooted him in place. He began, unsure what he could say. "I don't understand you. Why me? Why care?" Kaelen's amber eyes darkened, a hunger barely restrained, flashing in their depths. "Because you are not like the others," he said simply. "You are different, rare, dangerous, and I intend to see what it will take to claim that power for myself. Taren's breath caught. Claim, power, desire and instinct wove together, tight and undeniable. He had lived a life in the shadows, invisible, unwanted, and yet here, this alpha was seeing him, truly seeing him, for the first time. And with that recognition came a dangerous thought, one that made Taren shiver. Perhaps being a mistake had been a lie all along. Perhaps being different had always been his greatest strength. Kaelen stepped back slightly, giving Taren the illusion of space, though the tension between them was almost tangible. The Omega's pulse raced, awareness stretched, senses alive with the heat of the Alpha and the hint of something far larger stirring within him. The night held them in its fragile stillness, a prelude to a storm neither of them fully understood. Desire, fear, curiosity, and power collided silently, leaving Taren breathless and Kaelen fascinated in a way neither had anticipated. For Taren, it was the first time in his life that being seen felt like more than a threat. It felt like the beginning of something he had never dared imagine. The streets were quieter now, almost eerily so, as Taren walked beside Kaelen. The Alpha's presence pressed against him in waves, subtle but impossible to ignore, and Taren felt every instinct in his body awaken. He had spent his life shrinking, hiding, blending into shadows, but here he was acutely aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every pulse of energy around him. Kaelen's amber eyes never left him. "Do you always move like this?" he asked softly. "Careful, precise, like the world itself might crush you." I have to," Taren said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Otherwise, I won't survive." The Alpha's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, a rare flicker of something almost gentle. "And yet, you survive," he murmured. "More than that, you endure. That is remarkable." Taren's chest tightened, the weight of a lifetime of loneliness pressing against him. To hear someone acknowledge his survival, his existence, felt dangerous and thrilling all at once. He wanted to step back, to escape the intensity of Kaelen's gaze, but he could not. Something in the Alpha's presence held him firmly, like gravity. "You are different," Kaelen continued, voice low and deliberate, almost hypnotic. "I can feel it. Something inside you. Something you cannot yet name. And it calls to me." Taren swallowed hard, unsure what to say. He had always felt that pulsing energy, the secret that lived beneath his calm exterior, but no one had ever noticed. No one had ever named it. The words trembled in his chest, and finally he whispered, "I don't understand it. I don't know what it is." Kaelen's lips curved faintly, almost imperceptibly, but there was a hunger in his eyes that made Taren shiver. "Power," he said simply. "You carry power, Taren. Rare, dangerous, and irresistible. That is why I am here. That is why I cannot leave you in the shadows." Taren's pulse hammered. The recognition, the danger, the need, it all collided inside him. Fear fought with curiosity, with something darker that he could not yet name. I don't know if I can handle it," he admitted, voice trembling. Kaelen stepped closer, careful, deliberate, letting the heat between them thrum and twist like a living thing. "You don't need to handle it alone," he said. "Not anymore." For the first time, Taren felt a possibility that had been denied him his whole life, a possibility that his existence, his difference, might not be a curse, but a force. And the thought made his chest tighten with both fear and longing. The night racked around them, heavy with unspoken words, untamed energy, and the fragile beginning of something neither had anticipated. Taren's mind raced as they moved through the silent streets, the shadows stretching long under the moonlight. Every step with Kaelen was a study in restraint and tension. The Alpha walked beside him as if measuring him, testing boundaries, yet never fully pressing. Taren felt the pull of Kaelen's presence in a way that made his chest ache, his senses alive with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and a heat he couldn't fully control. "You are cautious," Kaelen murmured, voice low, almost intimate. "Not just in movement, in trust, in thought. Every instinct you have tells you to hide." Taren flinched slightly. I've had to. If I didn't, people would hurt me, or worse." The Alpha's gaze softened, though the intensity never faded. "And yet you walk with me now," Kaelen said. "That is defiance. That is strength. Most Omegas would have vanished long ago. You do not vanish, and that intrigues me." A flush crept up Taren's neck. He had never been acknowledged like this. Not for his strength. Not for anything. Usually people ignored him, scorned him, or pitied him. But Kaelen's words, they cut through all of that. They made him feel seen, as though someone could recognize the storm beneath his calm, the pulse of power he didn't yet understand. "You carry something hidden," Kaelen continued, stepping just close enough for Taren to feel the heat radiating off him. "Something potent. I can sense it, and I will draw it out." Taren's pulse quickened. His secret, the energy that had always been both a comfort and a terror, stirred in response. He had never dared show it to anyone, not even himself, yet Kaelen seemed to touch it without effort. The thought made a tremor of both fear and desire ripple through him. I don't know if I can control it," Taren whispered, voice shaking. Kaelen's lips curved faintly, predatory yet gentle. "You won't have to, not alone. I'll guide you, push you, and see what lies beneath." Taren's stomach twisted with a combination of anticipation and dread. He had lived in the shadows all his life, invisible, unwanted, yet here, standing beside Kaelen. He felt dangerous in a way he had never dared feel. The Alpha reached out, brushing his fingers against Taren's hand, a fleeting touch that left fire in its wake. "You are not a mistake, Taren. You are rare. You are power, and that makes you irresistible." Taren's breath caught. He wanted to pull back, to retreat into safety, yet some part of him, wild, forbidden, longed to stay, to be tested, to be seen, to exist in a way he never had before. The night held them suspended between fear, desire, and awakening power, both fragile and electric. For Taren, the realization was undeniable. Perhaps being different, being the Omega who shouldn't exist, was exactly what the world and Kaelen needed. And the air between them had thickened, charged with a tension neither Taren nor Kaelen could ignore. Taren's pulse thrummed in his ears as he glanced at the Alpha, who watched him with a quiet intensity that both unnerved and enthralled him. Every subtle movement, every shift of weight, carried a weight of meaning he had never experienced before. "So, I don't really know what you mean," Kaelen asked softly, stepping closer. "Aware of what you can do even if you don't yet understand it." Taren swallowed hard. He had felt it for years, the pulse, the energy, the thing within him that stirred when he was alone, or afraid, or even just breathing. But he had never named it, never acknowledged it. And now, with Kaelen so near, it felt impossible to deny. I feel something," he admitted, voice barely audible. "But I don't know what it is. I can't control it." Kaelen's lips curved into a faint, deliberate smile. "Control is irrelevant. Understanding is what matters. And I will see it, I will feel it, I will guide it, or test it myself." Taren's stomach tightened. The words carried both a promise and a warning. Kaelen's gaze roamed over him with a mixture of curiosity and desire, like he was unraveling Taren layer by layer. The Omega's body responded in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. Heat flaring, instincts stirring, a dangerous awareness of Kaelen's proximity. "You've survived so long alone," Kaelen continued, voice low and deliberate. "Yet now, you stand here, not hidden, not fleeing. That is defiance. That is courage. That is irresistible." Taren's breath hitched. He had spent his life believing he was invisible, irrelevant, a mistake. And now this alpha, this powerful, commanding presence, was telling him that he was something more, something dangerous, something desired. And Kaelen stepped even closer, close enough that their shoulders brushed, and Taren felt a jolt of heat race through him. The alpha's hand hovered near his own, a subtle test, a question of boundaries. "You are extraordinary, Taren," Kaelen whispered, his voice brushing against the Omega's ear. "And I intend to see how far that extraordinariness can go." For the first time in his life, Taren didn't step back. He didn't vanish. He met Kaelen's gaze, amber to amber, and allowed himself to be seen, truly seen, by someone who could break him, but who also recognized him. The night held them suspended between fear, anticipation, and awakening power. Every heartbeat, every tremor, every breath was a promise of what was to come, something neither of them could escape, something that would change the course of their lives forever. Weeks passed in a blur of quiet tension and unspoken curiosity. Taren had returned to his solitary routines, but nothing felt the same. The city, once a sanctuary of shadows and distance, now felt smaller, tighter, as if Kaelen's presence had left a permanent mark on him. He moved through the streets with a heightened awareness, every sound and whisper carrying the memory of the Alpha's gaze, the brush of heat that had left him unsettled yet alive. Even in solitude, Taren could feel the pulse beneath his skin, the hidden power he had long tried to ignore. It stirred more insistently now, teasing him, hinting at depths he had never dared explore. He had lived his life believing he was nothing, a mistake invisible to the world. But Kaelen's intrusion had awakened a dangerous possibility, that he was more than anyone had ever known. Kaelen, meanwhile, had not forgotten him. The Alpha's mind was a constant swirl of thoughts about the Omega who should not exist, about the enigma of Taren's scentless presence and the power hidden within. He had watched him from a distance, studied him, and every observation confirmed what he had already sensed. This Omega was unlike any other, rare, dangerous, and intoxicating in ways Kaelen had never imagined. One evening, as Taren perched atop his usual tower, the moonlight casting silver over his skin, Kaelen appeared without warning, stepping silently from the shadows. The Omega's body tensed instinctively, but he did not flee. Not this time. He had learned that flight was futile against someone like Kaelen. "You've changed," Kaelen observed, voice low, carrying that same mix of curiosity and hunger. "Stronger, sharper, aware of yourself in ways you didn't used to be." Taren met his gaze, amber eyes steady despite the rapid pulse in his chest. "I have to be," he said quietly. "You showed me. I'm not invisible. I'm not nothing. And that scares me as much as it excites me." Kaelen's lips curved faintly, predatory yet deliberate. "Good," he murmured. "Fear and desire are the beginnings of understanding power, and I intend to see all of yours." The Alpha stepped closer, letting the heat radiate around Taren, testing boundaries without touch, making the Omega acutely aware of every inch of space between them. The Omega's pulse raced, instincts awakening, senses alive in ways he had long suppressed. "You are extraordinary, Taren," Kaelen said, almost a whisper. "And I will not let this potential go to waste." The words hung between them, like a spark over dry grass. Taren shivered, knowing that every moment with Kaelen drew him deeper into a world he had never imagined, one where he was wanted, needed, and dangerously alive. For me, the concept of gratitude is a bold statement with fun power. The night stretched on, heavy with unspoken tension. Taren's body was alert, every nerve humming, as Kaelen stepped closer, closing the fragile distance between them. The Alpha's presence pressed against him in waves, deliberate and commanding, testing boundaries without a single touch. You felt it, haven't you? Kaelen's voice was low, a seductive rumble that seemed to vibrate through the air itself. The power inside you, stirring. Taren swallowed hard, amber eyes wide. Yes, but I don't know how to control it. I've never dared to. Kaelen's lips curved into a faint predatory smile. Then allow me to guide you, to see what it can do. You are not meant to hide in shadows any longer, Taren. Not from me, not from your own strength. Heat flared in Taren's chest, mingling with fear and desire. He had spent years shrinking from the world, denying his own existence. Yet now, under Kaelen's scrutiny, he felt dangerous, alive, and wanted. The Alpha moved closer, letting the warmth of his body brush against Taren's, testing reactions without fully touching. Every shiver, every tremor, every pulse of the Omega's heartbeat told Kaelen what he needed to know and fueled a desire that was difficult to restrain. You are extraordinary, Kaelen murmured, voice brushing against Taren's ear. Not just for what you carry within you, but for your defiance, your survival, your refusal to be invisible. Taren's chest tightened, an instinct stirred deep within him. He wanted to step back, to flee as he always had, yet he couldn't. Some force, ancient, magnetic, intoxicating, held him rooted to the spot, vulnerable, yet unafraid. Kaelen's hand hovered just inches from Taren's shoulder, a teasing promise. A subtle test. I will not let your potential go unseen, he said. I will uncover it, awaken it, claim it if necessary. Taren's breath caught. The words, the heat, the raw intensity of Kaelen's gaze, it all left him trembling, on the precipice of something he had never allowed himself to imagine. The Omega's pulse raced, awareness sharp, senses alive, as if his hidden power responded instinctively to the Alpha's dominance. The night held them suspended in fragile tension, desire and awakening energy. Neither moved nor spoke further, yet the air between them pulsed with the promise of what was to come. A collision of power, need, and forbidden connection that would change them both. The following days blurred into a rhythm neither Taren nor Kaelen had anticipated. Taren returned to his solitary routines, yet the memory of Kaelen's presence lingered in every shadow, every whispered sound of the city. His pulse remained attuned to the faint echo of the Alpha's heat, and every quiet night reminded him of the undeniable stirrings within himself, the hidden power he had long tried to suppress. Kaelen, equally restless, had begun seeking Taren with more purpose. Not openly, but in subtle ways. Glimpses in the streets, notes left where only Taren would find them, the faintest traces of attention that ensured the Omega felt seen. Kaelen was patient, testing boundaries, allowing curiosity and tension to build before fully revealing his intent. One evening, Taren perched on the edge of his usual tower, moonlight silvering his hair, and Kaelen appeared at the base, stepping from the shadows like he had always belonged there. Taren's chest tightened instinctively, though he did not move away. He had learned something crucial. Running was no longer an option. Not from Kaelen, not from the pull that had begun to awaken within him. You've changed, Kaelen said softly, voice carrying through the night air. Stronger, sharper, more aware. Taren's amber eyes met Kaelen's, steady despite the tremor of anticipation in his chest. I had to, he said. You showed me that I'm not invisible, that I matter, and that terrifies me as much as it excites me. Kaelen's lips curved faintly, the predatory edge never leaving his gaze. Fear and desire are the beginnings of understanding your power. I will see all of it, Taren. I will awaken it, and we will see just how far it can go. The Alpha stepped closer, letting his heat wash over Taren without touching him. An unspoken test of boundaries and control. Taren's pulse surged, instincts alive, senses sharpened by the closeness and the unspoken command. You are extraordinary, Kaelen whispered, voice low and dangerous. And I will not let this potential remain hidden. Not from me, not from the world, not from yourself. Taren shivered, aware of the thrill and danger in every word. For the first time, he felt alive, not despite being a mistake, but because of it. The Omega who should not exist had begun to awaken, and Kaelen intended to see every part of it. Taren felt the weight of Kaelen's gaze as he stepped closer, the Alpha's presence pressing against him like a living force. The night around them seemed to shrink, leaving only the two of them suspended in a fragile electric silence. Every instinct Taren had learned over a lifetime, the caution, the careful steps, the instinct to vanish, told him to retreat. But something deeper, wilder, pulled him forward. "You feel it, don't you?" Kaelen's voice was low, intimate, vibrating through the air in a way that made Taren's chest tighten. The power inside you, stirring, calling out. Taren swallowed hard. "Yes, but I don't know how to control it. I've never tried." His voice trembled, betraying both fear and an excitement he couldn't name. Kaelen's lips curved, predatory, yet deliberate. "Control isn't necessary yet. Awareness is. Recognition. That is the first step." His amber eyes bore into Taren's, studying him as if peeling back the layers of his very soul. "You've lived in shadows your entire life, hidden, and yet, you are alive. You are power, and I intend to see all of it." Taren's heartbeat raced, heat coursing through him. The closeness, the command, the pull, it made him aware of every breath, every pulse, every hidden tremor of his body. He had always been invisible, a mistake the world ignored. But here, standing before Kaelen, he felt dangerous, alive, and desired. Kaelen's hand hovered near Taren's shoulder, testing boundaries without fully touching. Letting the Omega feel the Alpha's heat and dominance. "You are not a mistake, Taren," Kaelen murmured. "You are rare. You are extraordinary, and I will not allow that to remain hidden." Taren's lips parted slightly, caught between instinct and desire, fear and fascination. He wanted to pull back, yet he did not. Some force, ancient, magnetic, intoxicating, held him rooted in place, vulnerable yet unafraid. The night stretched on, heavy with anticipation and awakening energy. Each moment between them was a silent promise of power, of discovery, of a connection neither had fully understood, but both were irrevocably drawn to. Weeks passed in a haze of tension, desire, and quiet awakening. Taren had returned to his routines, but the memory of Kaelen's presence lingered in every shadow, every flicker of movement in the city streets. The pulse of his hidden power had grown stronger, responding to his own awareness and, unknowingly, to the Alpha who had claimed his attention. Kaelen had not stopped seeking him, though the encounters remained subtle, controlled. A presence in the square, a shadow slipping past a rooftop, the faintest touch left on a ledge where only Taren could feel it. Each instance tested the Omega, drew him out, made him more aware of the dangerous energy that slept within him. One evening, Taren felt it stronger than ever. He had been perched high above the city, watching the streets glow in the moonlight, when a heat unlike any before pressed against his senses. Kaelen stepped from the shadows, his presence overwhelming, and Taren's breath hitched instinctively. "You are changing," Kaelen said, voice low and deliberate. "Stronger, more attuned, more powerful than even you realize." Taren's amber eyes met Kaelen's, fear and exhilaration coiling together. "I feel it, but I don't understand it. I can't control it yet." "That is fine," Kaelen murmured, stepping closer, letting the heat radiate, testing Taren's limits without touching him fully. "Awareness comes first. Control comes later. You are extraordinary, Taren. That is why I am here. That is why I cannot leave you in the shadows." The words sent a tremor through Taren. His instincts, long suppressed, stirred with a dangerous energy, a need to respond, to reach, to be seen fully. The Omega had lived a lifetime in invisibility, but now, with Kaelen, he could not hide. He did not want to. "You are not a mistake," Kaelen whispered, letting the intensity of his gaze and presence sweep over Taren. "You are power. You are rare. You are mine to awaken." Taren shivered, the combination of fear, desire, and the dangerous hum of his own power overwhelming him. For the first time, he felt alive, not despite his difference, but because of it. And Kaelen intended to see every part of it. The tension between them had become unbearable, a charged current that neither could ignore. Taren's pulse thrummed in his veins, the hidden power within him stirring in response to Kaelen's presence. Every glance, every subtle movement of the Alpha made the Omega aware of himself in ways he had never been before. Kaelen stepped closer, letting his heat press against Taren without a touch, testing, teasing, claiming the space around him. You feel it now, Kaelen murmured, voice low and intimate. The power you've kept hidden, it responds. It knows me. It knows what it can do. Taren's breath hitched. He had never felt anyone recognize him like this. Never felt anyone acknowledge the force that had always lived beneath his calm, beneath his silence. I don't know what to do with it, he whispered, voice trembling. I've never dared to try. Kaelen's amber eyes darkened with a hunger he could no longer restrain. Then let me show you, he said. Let me guide you. Let me awaken what has always been yours. The Alpha's hand brushed lightly against Taren's wrist, a touch that sent heat spiraling through the Omega's body. Every instinct screamed at him to step back, to vanish into the shadows, yet some deeper, wilder part of him, one he had denied for so long, urged him to lean into the contact, to allow himself to feel. You are extraordinary, Kaelen murmured, voice a low rumble that vibrated through Taren's chest. Not because you exist, but because you survive. Because you resist. Because you carry a power that even you have not fully realized. Taren's amber eyes met Kaelen's, steady and unflinching, and for the first time, he allowed himself to believe it. He was not a mistake. He was not nothing. He was dangerous. He was powerful. And for the first time, someone wanted him. Not despite that, but because of it. Kaelen's fingers traced the line of Taren's jaw lightly, and the Omega shivered at the contact, his instincts screaming, his heart hammering, his hidden power responding like a living thing. You are mine to awaken, Kaelen whispered, and together we will see just how far you can go. The night held them suspended, taut with heat, anticipation, and the dangerous promise of power and desire. Taren, the Omega who should not exist, had begun to awaken, and Kaelen would be there to see every part of it.